Y'all, I have another kid podcast for you to try out with your kids. And this one is about eggs that go on adventures around the world and in their own backyard. The show is called The Good Eggs. And just to make it cuter, all of the character names have something to do with eggs. Adorable, right? I'm Andy Smiley, the Friendly Podcast Guide. I'm a mom who has used podcasts to fight the boredom and loneliness of motherhood, and now I want to help you find a podcast that can do the same thing for you. It can be overwhelming to try and find a podcast you'll enjoy in the thousands of shows that are out there. That's where I come in. My episodes are short, and they answer all of the questions you'll have about the podcast, so you'll know if it's a good fit for you or not. I'm here to help you find a podcast you'll love without wasting your time. Now, let's talk podcasts. Sandy Sharmataro is the host, and she describes the show like this. Follow the eggs as they learn lessons about virtues, diversity, and service. Kindness, understanding, and helping others are important things to learn as you grow into a good egg. The length of each episode is 15 to 20 minutes. The series is ongoing with new episodes available about once a month. Before we learn more about the vibe of the show, we're going to take a quick break to talk about my guide to kid podcasts. One of my favorite parenting tools is kid podcasts. I use them when I'm running errands with the kiddos to keep them from complaining the whole time, or when I need a mom break, I'll just grab an easy activity like coloring pages or a sensory bin, turn on a kid podcast, and the kids will be entertained for at least half an hour. I know that kid podcasts would help you in your life too, which is why I made a guide to kid podcasts. There are 8 different categories ranging from science to mindfulness to audio drama, with at least 3 podcasts in each category. There are 27 different podcasts in total on the guide. I've listened to each of the podcasts on this guide, so I can attest to them being kid-friendly. And I put my email at the bottom of the guide so that if you try a couple with your kids and none of them are a good fit, you can email me and I will personally help you find a kid podcast that works for your littles and you. You can grab this guide at the link in the show notes. Now we get to hear from Sandy as she talks about all the different ways your kids can learn alongside the good eggs. Sandy, welcome to the Friendly Podcast Guide.
Thanks, Andy. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Before we get into all of the questions, can you introduce yourself a little bit to my listeners?
Sure. So I'm Sandy Sharmataro. I am a high school teacher currently. I teach at an all-girls school in the suburbs of Detroit, Michigan. And I also am a founder of a nonprofit that I started, which is based off of a trilogy of children's books that I wrote. So I have kind of 2 things going, and my hope is to eventually transition out of teaching and move into my nonprofit work and my author work, my children's author work as well, full time.
Cool. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Okay. So can we dive in a little bit to why you started your podcast?
Sure. So it's based off of the books that I wrote. So the books are called The Good Eggs, and it's a trilogy. I know we're going to be audio, right? Just on yours, but I can show you these. So it's like, the first one's about virtues. And then the second one teaches diversity, where they travel all around the world. And then the third one, they come home and they stay in their hometown and they learn about community service. So it's a 3-part, like you see 3 years in their lives of them grow. Mm-hmm. So I am marketing the books, obviously, but I also wanted to do them in an audible form. So that's basically what my podcast is the audible form of the books. But I also give kids a little challenge at the end, well, you saw that Benedict acted this way, how about if you try showing some understanding or write a note of love to somebody or a note of thanks or whatever happens in the book. I try to give the kids a little challenge at the end.
I love that. I'll make sure to add a link so that people can go and find your books and see how cute they are because they're so fun.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
So what age range would you say the books and the podcast are for?
So I would say from 6 to 12. I mean, it could be 5 to 12 as well. Okay. Getting on the older side, they might be getting a little bit old, but I would say elementary school. So we can do the 5 to 12, 5 to 10, 11-ish, depending on the reading level of the child and the interests of the child as well.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, anywhere in elementary.
Perfect. That's an easy thing to remember.
Yeah.
So what do you want kids and their parents to get out of your podcast?
Well, actually, it is, like I said, story form. So the big first book is on virtues. So it teaches 12 different virtues like understanding, gratitude, forgiveness, cooperation, manners. There's 12 in all. So I would hope that, and I have gotten feedback from parents on this, that when their kids have read through the books or a parent or a teacher read to them, that they do incorporate the lessons into their young lives. Because as you know, kids are very malleable, right, with their brains, and will they look at every single thing we say and do. So by us showing that example, or by them reading about an example, that when it comes time for them to be in a situation where they have to make some kind of a goodness decision, that they do the right thing. So that's what the first book teaches. So I have had feedback on that hopefully that's working, that kids will say, oh, Mama, that's what Benedict did, or that's what Gregory said, or, they'll actually mention the characters and what they did. And then they would do that in their own lives. I had one teacher, they read the third book about community service, and her 5th grade class wanted to do all the service in their own community that the eggs
goodness.
did. Yeah,
that's
they
so
collected, there's the one chapter where they go to an animal shelter. So they collected things for an animal shelter. They went to an elderly care facility and made baskets for the residents there. They tutored kids. I mean, they did everything in this book. So that's exactly, I was so happy because that's exactly what I would want, is for the kids to emulate kindness and compassion and empathy.
Definitely. Yeah. That's like the goal, right? Is
that's
to help kids understand and learn and be better, a little better.
Exactly. And it's simple kid situations, it's nothing like groundbreaking, things that they can relate to. And the hope is that as they do this at their young age, that it becomes part of them, right? It becomes who they are. And then as they grow into an adult, it's naturally, they're going to think that way. They're going to think, oh, I should show some kindness here. Or, maybe that person's having a rough day. Maybe I can reach out. That hopefully that becomes part of who they are, right?
Definitely.
Putting goodness back into the world.
And we need all the goodness we can get, right?
The more, the better, right?
Yes. So how would you describe the vibe of your show?
So the vibe is, I would call it like a story time vibe. So if kids want to journey through the books audibly, that's how they can do it. If parents are in the car and they want to put an episode on, right, so the kids can hear, they can do it that way. But it's definitely like a story time. So I'll talk a little bit to the kids in the beginning, and then I'll say, let's see what's happening in chapter 1 or chapter 5, whatever chapter episode they want to put in. They do follow in succession. So it is kind of good to hear, start at 1, because they'll reference things that happened previously. And then, like I said, I go through the chapter, and then at the end, I talk to them like, wow, wasn't that amazing? What Sigourney said, or what happened, or how Benedict had a change of heart. And then I'll say, why don't you try it this week? And I'll give them a little challenge, like I said earlier, pertaining to the chapter. So it's fun. And then I'll say, okay, I'll see you next week, or next month. I think I'm running them on the months, because the books run month to month. They go back to school in September.
Oh,
and then
sure.
Each month they learn a different virtue. So it goes September to August. So that's how the podcast goes.
That makes sense.
And then October, and then November. Yeah. So each month they have a new episode.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a fun way to do it, because that's an easy way for kids to think about it. They're in school too. So
right. That's why I structured it that way.
Yeah. Go to school with the eggs. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Okay. I am going to ask you about your favorite episode, or you can say your favorite character, because it's kind of hard with storytelling ones. But first, can you tell me, while you're thinking about that, where can people find you and your books and your nonprofit?
Yes. So they can go to thegoodeggs.org. And everything is there about the nonprofit. They can see it, all the eggings, because once a month I egg an organization or family that's in need, that has to do with children. So like next month, there's an organization that helps refugee kids in our town. So I'm going to get them toys and clothes that they need. So each month it's different. So they can look at all the eggings on thegoodeggs.org. There's also a tab for books. And if they go to that tab, there is a link to my Amazon page. So
Oh,
they can
perfect.
order the books there. Yep. They're in Kindle version, they're in paperback, and they're in hardcover. So whatever version they like. And I'd appreciate a review because I need a few more to move up in the SEO. So that would be great.
Okay,
And
perfect.
I also have a parent blog. So they can sign up for the parent blog that also journeys through the books on an adult level. So, I'll talk about the virtue of understanding or whatever chapter we happen to be on. I think I'm already into book 2 on the blog, but you can read past ones
Sure.
as well. So they can sign up for that. There's a newsletter to keep up with all things Good Eggs. I just got the first book put into videos. So there's 12 video episodes.
Cool.
And they're now airing on the Michigan Learning Channel, which is an affiliate of PBS. So those are airing through January. And once those are aired, they're going to be available on demand on the Michigan Learning Channel. So that's fun too. They can watch them in video form.
Wow, good for you.
So,
that's an exciting accomplishment.
It is. So it's just been a lot of fun. It's been a great adventure. So yeah, everything on thegooteggs.org, they can see all about us.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
And
the podcast is there as well, obviously.
Sure. Yeah. That was kind of a given in my mind. So perfect.
Yes.
Okay. So now is the time. A favorite episode or a favorite character.
All
right.
All right.
Say a couple if you need to, because it's really hard to choose.
It is so hard to choose because I love all the characters. I created them with different personalities. They all have egg in their name. Like we have Sigourney and Reggie and Peggy and Meg with 2 G's, Gregory with 2 G's, and Benedict. Benedict has a little trouble going on, but I must say my alter ego in the book is Ms. Poach. That's the teacher.
That's so fun.
She's kind of my favorite only because I based her off of me a little bit, but I love all of them. That's why I only intended to write one book, but I ended up loving them so much. I said, oh my gosh, I got to take them around the world. And then I got to put them in their hometown and do community service. So it kind of ended up morphing into 3. So I'm going to go with Miss Poach only because she's totally in my head, what I'm thinking. The other ones, I kind of get into their character and put into words what they're thinking. So
sure.
I love them all. Love them all.
Yes.
And my favorite episode actually hasn't aired yet. I love all the episodes, I must say, but I'm also just starting on book 2.
Oh, fun.
And the most fun one so far has been Egypt. Because when they go to Egypt, oh my gosh, all these adventures happen. They happen in all the countries, but there's just some cool sound effects where Benedict goes into a pyramid and there's a little girl crying and he ends up rescuing her. And Miss Poach gets slimed by a camel. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So that one, it'll air in March. That one's scheduled for March. So, but they're all good. They're all fun. Yeah. So
yes, it does sound like a party. I am so excited to introduce my listeners to all of these eggs and Miss Poach. It's going to be very exciting.
Yes.
And is there anything else that you want to add that we haven't touched on yet?
Just pretty much everything is on the website. If they want to take a look at, I also have lesson plans for the books for teachers or parents. They can do at home that follow chapter by chapter. There'll be a synopsis for, on an adult level, and then what the lesson is about, and then maybe 3 or 4 things they can choose from to do at home that could reinforce things at home. Just subtly. I believe in doing things on us, very subtly, not in their face, just so they can, you can lead by example, which I think is the strongest way to teach.
Definitely. And I'm sure that the listeners and the parents are very grateful. Well, the parents specifically are grateful for that subtlety to be able to, it doesn't just like shove it down the kids' throats. It's like, look at how nice and how fun it is to be a good egg.
Right. And the thing is, in your own family or your own classroom, situations are going to come up that you can relate it to. So it's very general that you can relate it to your own lives. You can plug it in and say, oh, like this one mom, she emailed me and said her and her friend were talking about a Christmas gift for a family that was in need. She didn't even think her son was listening. And he pulled on her arm and he said, Mama, that's just like the Good Eggs, because they did that at Christmas. So
sure.
she goes, oh, She goes, I didn't even think he was listening to me. And he picked up on that. So, that made her happy. And she had to write and tell me that. And I was like, oh, good. That's what I want, for
Definitely.
kids to internalize all of that.
Well, thank you so much for writing these books and making a podcast and a video series. Yeah. I'm so excited to introduce my listeners to the Good Eggs and hopefully add some more learning tools and parent tools for my listeners.
That would be great. Yep. And I'm going to put a link on to the Michigan Learning Channel that they can watch the shows. It's every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m.
Okay, perfect.
So I'll put a link on my website as well for that if they want to watch it live. Because I know if they're not in Michigan, they won't get the channel.
Sure.
But they can watch it live on their website.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you know someone who could use the Good Eggs in their life, will you share this episode with them? And if you want to try out Kid Podcast with your family and you don't know where to start, grab my Kid Podcast guide to find the perfect podcast for your littles. Talk to you soon. You sound like you're from Detroit. Are you from Detroit?
I am from Detroit. Yes.
Okay. My mom is from Rochester Hills, if you know.
We're neighbors. Yeah.
That's so fun.